Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this fully beaded flat Kumihimo braid. And this is what it can look like. So I've just used these materials here, so some satin cord and some faceted rondelles. You can also use rounds or whatever beads you want to, and different sizes as well. So this is what mine looks like, and it gives a really nice impact because obviously there's a lot of beads here, so it gives a really nice effect. And also it'd be fun to play around with the patterning in the beads themselves and get some different looks with that. So that's how this one looks, and I've just turned this braid into a bracelet, but you can obviously use the braid for whatever you want to. So if you want to learn how to make this braid with all the beads in it, then stay tuned. So these are then the materials that we need to make this braid with. Now first of all we need a square Kumihimo disc here because we're making a flat braid, and then we need our cord. Now you can really use anything, but I'm using a 1mm satin cord, and this is just a silver colour. But like I said, you can use whatever cord you want to. All you have to make sure of is, I would recommend a bit of a substantial cord rather than too thin, because it needs to be able to carry the braid. But also the cord needs to be able to go through the hole in your beads. So just make sure that the beads will fit onto your cord and then it'll be fine. And the beads that I'm using here are some glass faceted rondelles in a purple colour, a really beautiful purple colour there, very sparkly. And these measure 3 by 4mm. So that's just what I'm using. You can also use other shapes and sizes. For instance, rounds would be perfect as well. I just happen to be using these rondelles because I thought they would look nice with the silver cord there. And I know they'll go onto my cord as well. So have them play with different kinds and shapes of beads, and you can also mix up the sizes, so use smaller or even a bit larger as well. And then finally we have the ribbon ends here that we need to finish off the braid with at the end, and these specific ones are 8mm in the width. They're going to fit perfectly with the materials that I'm using here, but just remember, if you change up the materials you might need to change up the size of your ribbon end as well to fit it just perfectly. And then whatever findings you want to use for the ribbon ends, so whatever clasp you want to use as well. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So what we need to do first is cut our lengths of cord that we're going to need for the braid. Now what I have here is 7 lengths of a 1mm satin cord of about 50 centimeters each. And then what I've done is put them all together at the end and just tied a regular overhand knot just to keep all the cords together here, and then be able to start attaching this to our disc. So I've then attached all my cords here onto my disc by just putting that knot down through the center of the disc and coming out on the back side there. So that's what we're going to set it up like this. Now what I have is, I have 4 of my cords on the top side of the disc there. So I've got 4 just in the middle, and then I've got the other 3 cords on the bottom here, just straight across from them. But except obviously the 4th space there, across from there, is empty because we only have 7 cords in total. So this is how you want to set up your disc. So now what we need to do is start making the braid here, and what I want to do before we add in any beads at all, I want to just make a little section of just the braid with the cord here. So what I'm going to do is, the first step is to bring, we have the 4 cords on the top, so always remember there's always going to be the 4 cords on the top and basically the 3 on the bottom here once we make our go arounds. So take the top left one and bring it out to the side, just stay on the left side of the disc, out to that side, just straight across the side there from the hole in the disc, like that. So now what we need to do is start crossing over our cords over the middle here, so over that middle hole in the disc. And now what you're going to be able to see is about remembering how to do it. Just always think of where you have a free slot there on the disc. So in my case, I now got even numbers on both sides there, just to begin with. But what I have is, I have that empty slot there that I just emptied by moving the top left one out to the side. So that means the one straight across from it on the bottom needs to go up into that slot. So that's how you can remember which one you always need to start with. So take that bottom left one up over the middle of the disc into that empty slot that we just freed. Then I go over to the next one, so basically the neighbour you could say. Release that, bring it down into the slot on the bottom that you just freed up. Take the very next one over the middle into the slot that you just freed up before. And the very next one over the middle down to the slot you just freed up. And basically we're doing this all the way across, the bottom one up into the empty slot. So we're always taking the very next cord, bringing it to the opposite side into the empty slot that we just freed up. So like that. So now we have all the cords there crossing over in the middle, and they're basically just swap places from the top to the bottom. So then now what we need to do is use this cord on the side. So I'm going to release that on the left side. We need to bring it across the middle of the disc, over all the cords that we've crossed over in the middle there, over to the other side of the disc and place it on the other side, but in the same slot but just on the opposite side exactly there. So that's that one moved, because what this is used to basically help create the braid, because if we just keep crossing them over in the middle without doing this step, then it won't really form into a proper braid. So that's why we need to always remember to take that one from the left side over to the right once we've crossed our cords over in the middle there. And then now we're basically going to start from scratch again. So that means we have the 3 on the top and the 3 on the bottom. So I'm going to take the top left one, just like I did with this one that we made up, brought it to the side there. I'm going to take that, release it, bring that out to the side, just in the same slot as the opposite side there. And then we're just going to start the same process again. The only difference is now we have one cord on each side, and that's the proper braid. That's what it's going to keep being like from now on. The first one was just the very first go around to start off the braid. But I'm going to then start from my bottom left one, sorry, because as you can see, the top left one is now free because we just freed that up with the one out to the side. So that means I need to fill that in with the one opposite one from the bottom. Take that, bring it over the middle, up to the top in that empty slot. Grab the very next one, bring it down into the slot that you just freed up on the opposite side, grab the next one. So we're just repeating what I showed you before, always grabbing the very next one, bring it to the opposite side in the empty slot that you just freed up. The last one, bring it up into that empty slot. So there we go now. Now you can see it looks a little bit different. We now have 3 cords on the top and 2 on the bottom there. But then what we need to do to kind of even that out again is the side one here on the right side. So the very first one that we brought over from the left to the right across the middle, I take that, and then if you look on these cords that are crossing over the middle, the top and the bottom, where you have an empty gap, and that's here on the bottom. So what I'm going to do with this is just bring this down and place that in that empty slot there, and then that is basically another whole go around after we've just taken the other one here as well to the side. So this is the one on the left side, the only one we have left on either of the sides now. Do the same as before. We want to make sure to bring that over to the opposite side of the braid so it crosses over all those that are crossed over in the middle there, and just place it in the slot again that you just freed up with the one that we brought down. So it's basically all we keep doing. We keep putting the next cord into the empty slot that we just freed up. So there we go. This is now one full go around again. So that is basically what we're going to keep repeating now. So going back to the beginning, the top left one is the one that I release, bring out to the left side, and then we start from scratch, crossing the top and the bottom ones over the middle. So the bottom left one goes up in the free slot at the top, the next one comes down in the free slot, the next one goes up, always filling up that empty slot that you just freed up with the previous cord that you moved. The last one there. And remember now we need to move this outer cord on the side on the right side. So always remember when we're moving the cords in the middle here up and down, we're going from left to right. So then what we need to finish up with is using the right cord on the side. Bring that down to fill up the empty slot on the bottom. There we go. And then the side one on the other side, bring that across the middle, so we complete this go around as well. So there we go, now that's on the opposite side. So this is basically what you want to keep doing for a little bit until you have about a couple centimeters of braid, I would say. So now that I have that little section of braid here at the beginning, then what we need to do now, we've gotten to a point where it's now time to start adding in the beads. So I've now added all my beads onto the cord here. Now what we need to do is add beads onto all the lengths of cord all the way around. We won't be using a bead on every single cord when we move it. I'm going to show you how we're going to add them in, but we do need to use them throughout because the cords are going to keep swapping places around the disc. Now the amount of beads that we need obviously depend on the size of your piece that you want, how long you want your piece to be. But in my case, what I've done here, the top 2 cords have got 16 beads on each. And then the side one here on the right side has got 16. The bottom 3 have got 16 as well. But then the side one on the left side has only got 15 beads. So this one on the left side has just got 1 bead less than the rest of them. And this will give about an average size bracelet, so about a 7.5 inch, including the clasp as well, obviously, depending what clasp you use. But that's about the size that this is going to give, using these size and kinds of beads, obviously. So the beads will determine as well how many you need. But you can always add more beads or take beads away depending what you want to use it for. So you just want to add equal amounts onto all of them and continue the same pattern for however long you want your final piece to be. But then we need to start adding the beads into the braid here as well. So what I'm going to do is pick up my disc and again just grab my braid on the bottom. You can also add a weight if you want to. It's going to help pull the braid through in the middle there, and just keep hold of that. And then we want to continue the braid the exact same way that I showed you, except now along the way we want to add in some beads as well. So I'm due to start my next go around on the disc here, the exact same way that I already showed you with the cords. Now what we need to do when we add in the beads, I'm going to tell you where we're going to do it. We're only ever going to add in beads when we use the bottom 3 cords down here. So obviously, like I said, the cords are going to keep swapping places, which is why we need to add beads onto all of them. Because eventually, say, these top ones will end up down here, and that's why they also need to have beads. So we're only going to add in beads when we're moving these cords. So that means the one I'm due to take next is my bottom left one there, because I need to fill in the gap open space up here on the top side, because I brought this one down last from the top. So to bring that over, as I'm releasing my cord, I'm just going to release my very first bead and then let that drop all the way down and sit on top of the cords in the middle here of the disc. So just let it rest on top of there. Then going to place my cord in that slot up there, the exact same way that I showed you before. And now we need to bring the next one from the top down to fill in this empty space on the bottom that we just freed up. Now because we're going from the top, you don't want to add in any beads here. Even though we have beads on the cord, you don't want to add it in. Just bring it down, just like if we're working without beads on here. The next one is the next one down from the bottom here, so that's the middle one out of the 3. I release that, and I also release the very first bead on that one that I run into. Let that drop all the way down to the middle there as well, just sitting on top of the cords in the middle. Place that in the empty slot on the top, and then grab the very next one on the top row here. Again, because it's from the top, we don't need to add in any beads. Just bring the cord down and fill in the empty gap on the bottom. Now the last cord on the bottom here, the next one over, release that, and because it's a bottom cord, again, just bring down 1 bead on this cord all the way down to sit on top there, and then place it in the empty slot on the top. So what we've done now, we're crossing these top and bottom ones over the middle. From the bottom ones up, that's the ones we've added the beads to. So we now have 3 beads sitting here in the middle, right next to each other, but on top of all the other braiding that we've done underneath. So just to continue the braid, and obviously along the way also lock in the beads. So this row of beads needs to be locked in. I'm going to take the side one on the right side here. This is the one we bring down to fill in the gap on the bottom. Just bring that down without doing anything with the beads. And then the one on the left side is the one we need to bring over the middle to get the cord laying across the middle there and get it over on the right side. So again, release that. We're not going to use any beads on this. Just bring it across the middle. And then you're going to find that this cord, I'm just going to have to push my beads down, that this cord that we just brought over the middle is actually going to sit right on top of those 3 beads that we added. So you want to make sure it sits right on top of there. Place the cord on the opposite side, and then just to finish off the go around, we need to just grab the top left one here, because this is the one we need to release and bring down to the side. So the gap that we just freed up when we brought this over, we need to bring this into that. And then that's one full go around where we've now added in our first row of beads here. And that is basically how you do it, and you keep doing the same thing now. So I'm just going to show you again. We start from the bottom here, because remember we just emptied the slot up here, so we need to fill in that with the opposite one from the bottom here. But then remember, it's the bottom ones where we add in the beads. So whenever you've got the cords on the bottom, you're moving them. As you're releasing that cord that you're going to move, also push down 1 bead. And then it's going to sit right on top, basically now on top of the cord that we brought over the middle, just there, and also on top of the previous row of beads. And then what you'll find is, if you look closely, that when you bring this cord over, you push the bead all the way down as far as it'll go, but make sure, well, not really as far as it'll go, because you can push it all the way down there, but you want to push it down so it sits on top of that cord like I just said. But then the cord that you have left just below that is going to slot in between the two beads there on the first and the previous row that we made. And that's how we're going to basically cage them in and fasten them in place. So that's the first one. Then the next one from the top we bring down without adding in any beads. So just bring this across the middle, because this is now the one where this cord is coming out from the middle bead on the previous row there. Bring that down to the empty slot. Now release the next one over from the bottom, the middle one. Because it's from the bottom, we need to drop down one bead. Drop it all the way down again, so this bead sits on top of the cord that we brought across the middle and on top of the previous row of beads there. And again, this little cord that you can see before the bead from the braid there on the bottom also nestles in between the two beads right there. And then you want to place this in the empty slot on the top. The next one from the top, don't add in any beads, because that's what we did previously. This is the one coming out from the last bead in the row. The very last cord on the bottom here, again we want to add in a bead. Now this cord is going to come around the outside of the very last bead in that row, if you can see there. And again, just push down your bead to the same place to sit right on top of that cord across the middle and the previous row of beads. And there we go. And then if you have a weight, you can help pull it down and help pull it down with your fingers, but also just, you can always push your beads down a little bit here so it kind of stays flush with the hole in the center of the disc. So there we go, that's from the top and the bottom ones that are swapped over. So now I'm going to bring the side one down to the empty slot that we just freed on the bottom side. And we've now captured actually the first row of beads completely in place, so they're nice and secure now. And then again, to then help fasten in this row that we just added the beads in, we need to bring the left cord over the middle towards the right. Make sure that it lies on top of that row of beads that we just added, just like that, and place it on the other side of the disc. And then to finish off this go around, bring the top left one down to fill in the slot that we just freed with the one that we brought over the middle, and then that's another full go around. And I now pretty much have 2 rows of beads, and you want to just keep doing this, building up the braid here with the beads, and you're going to see a really nice pattern forming. And because of how we're doing this and adding in the beads, they're going to sit really nice and securely within the braid there and give a really nice pattern. So just keep doing this and build up the length that you want your braid to be. So I'll now keep adding my beads into my braid here until I run out of all the beads on all the lengths of cord, and then you'll find your braid coming out on the back looking a little something like this, just with these materials that I've used here. Obviously it can look completely different depending on the materials that you use, but you get this really nice look of the bead just nestled into the whole braid there. And then what you'll find as well is that when you're making it, the braid will be coming out from under the disc there in the middle at an angle like this. So don't worry about trying to pull it straight, because that's just how the braid works. So just let it flow like that. It comes out at this angle, but then it can be used straight like this anyway once we've done it and we've finished it off. So don't worry too much about that at all, because that's just the natural way of the braid. So now that we've finished adding in all the beads, what we need to do is make a little section here at the end, just like we did at the beginning, with just some braid, so we can use that to finish off the braid for whatever we want to use it for. And to do that, all we do is pick back up the braid that we've done all along, but then just stop adding in the beads. So just do exactly the same. Don't worry about anything other than just making the braid the exact same way that I showed you in the beginning. So filling in the gap that you just open up when you move a cord, swapping the cords from top to bottom like that, and then we take the side one here, the right one, brings that down to fill in the gap that we left, and the one on the other side, release that and bring it over the middle, over to the other side, the gap again that we just freed up. And then the top left one, bring it down again to the gap that we just freed up. So like that, that's one full go around, and you just keep doing this until you have a couple centimeters of braid, enough so we can finish it off. But like I said, keep doing the braid and just keep thinking of it as you're just constantly filling in the gap that you just freed up when you move in the next card, until you then get the hang of it, and you can do it quite on autopilot then. But do this for a little bit, and then once you've done that, you can take it off the disc, and then we'll have it ready to then finish it off. So I now finished the braid completely here, and I've taken it off the disc, and I've just put a temporary knot on the other end as well, just to hold it together while we're going to finish it off. So this is what it can look like. This is just my version of it. And as you can see, you have these the rows actually go at an angle because of how the braid was created, but you still have a straight piece of braid that you can easily use for, say, a bracelet. So this is what it looks like. So all that's left to do now is then add on our end caps there. So I'm going to be using the ribbon ends to finish off the end, and then also obviously on the other end, and I'm going to attach my findings to that, so my clasp with some jump rings. You can use whatever findings you want to. If you're not sure how to finish off your Kumihimo braids with ribbon ends, I've already got a tutorial that shows how to do that. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below, but just do that and then basically your bracelet will be done. So I now added the ribbon ends here and the findings on each end, and then basically my bracelet is finished. You just use your clasp, fasten it, and then you have a nice, impactful I think, but still delicate looking bracelet. Obviously this is just made into a bracelet. You can use this braid for other things as well. It's completely up to you what you want to use it for. But then that's how it looks. And also this one I did was 7 lengths of cord like I explained at the beginning. But you could easily use more and then therefore make it wider. So if you want to have more rows and then obviously more beads as well. All you have to do is make sure you use an uneven amount. So I use 7. So you could use 9 for instance and add on an extra row. So that's completely up to you. It'll be the exact same basic technique. So that's how you make this. I also think it could be quite fun to play around with the pattern in the beads here. So instead of just using one colour, but actually make some patterning with the beads using different colours. So as you can see, either just you've got straight rows across lengthways, but also you can kind of see you have triangles, so it could be fun using different colour beads and make some kind of pattern with that. But that's obviously something you can play around with if you want to. It's just a suggestion. But then that's how you make this braid. A beaded, fully beaded flat Kumihimo braid. It looks like that. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded Kumihimo bracelet using super duos, and this is what it looks like. So we have our braid in the middle there with beads on, and then we add this embellishments to the side using those super duos in the braid. So it looks like this all the way around, and I just use these bicones here. Gives a really nice sparkle to the piece, and I really like the contrast between the matte and the sparkly beads. That's obviously completely up to you. So this is the bracelet.